Yeah, I think it's not a bad idea to ferry people over. I mean, it's just they didn't take into account Tyrion and his ingenuity, essentially. Right? I feel like I'm right.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean,
I'm always right, you know. So. Welcome to Vassals of Kingsgrave. Greetings, mortals. It is I, PatrickTheTall, and, well, we're back. This is the 29th version of the linear reread of the Song of Ice and Fire. This is a chronological reading, where we try to figure out if there's some different meanings if you read it out of the order that George meant it to be. So, we're coming from last episode where it was 4 days before the battle on the Blackwater, and now we move ahead until September 7th, 299, where we actually starting the Blackwater. It's gonna be very interesting, and we're gonna have to cut the whole scene on the Blackwater up into 2 episodes. First 3 chapters is gonna be in my one, and the next 3 is gonna be dealt with by Casey. So, let's start with introducing the people that are here. Maybe we can have some, maybe there will be some more people afterwards, but let's just start with the people we have here. So, starting with Hannah.
hey, it's Shadowbaby on the forums.
Okay, so we have Nadia.
Hi everyone, this is Nadia, who
Yeah.
Patrick forgot completely.
I did not forget you. It's just I don't actually know what you, Jock Munro, what your name is in reality.
And I'm MunroeJock here on the forums, which is very imaginative.
But what's your real name? I don't know that.
Jock
Sorry.
Munro.
You're Jock Munro. Oh, sorry. I just I haven't
Yeah.
I haven't seen that name before, so I was confused.
Yeah, it's Scottish. Means sporty mountain.
Well, I mean, it's probably inspired by something either Gaelic or Nordic. So in either case, it's awesome. So yeah, is there any first timers here? Jock Munro, you're first timer, right? Or
Yeah, I'm first timer.
okay, cool. So Jock, how did you get into the fandom?
I got lent the books from a friend. I started reading them, and I later started watching a show when I couldn't buy A Storm of Swords and Waterstones, and saw the show in HMV, which was next door. That's a DVD store.
Mm-hmm.
So I bought the show to watch while I was waiting to find the books.
So
Yeah.
was this after the show had come out? You started with the books, or was it
Yes.
more like?
Yeah, it was a show.
Okay, so
Oh.
you had the hype from the show, so you kind of knew what you were going into, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. So who's your favorite character then?
I'd have to say Davos, probably.
Oh, well, you're in luck then, because we have one
Yes.
here, and it's quite a
But this
meaty
is best chapter.
one of his best chapters. Plus, it's quite a meaty one. So yeah, good on you. Yeah, well, so let's just go on to the actual summary of the chapters. I mean, the first chapter is gonna be who's having the first chapter? It's gonna be Sansa. So who's taking Sansa?
Yeah, that's me.
Yes. Okay, so Jock, you're right. Are you ready with a summary?
Yeah.
Okay, so take it away.
Okay, the chapter opens with Stannis' ships arriving and the various members of court finding out. Sansa on her way to Maegor's Holdfast runs into Joffrey, who, no matter what your opinion on him, you have to give his sense of style, is certainly still standing.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, they make their way to Maegor's Holdfast, where Sir Ilyn is standing by, that can ominous, and Dora Stokeworth doesn't want you to go in, which I totally agree with her. I'd choose the battlefield as well over a room with Cersei for several hours, and that's pretty much the chapter. It's not that long, just with Cersei finishing it, running in, and basically insulting everyone.
Right, you are. I mean, she's Cersei at her best/worst. Maybe it succeeded by the next chapter where she gets thoroughly drunk. Not to spoil anything, but
yeah, I think they would have led it if they were listening to this.
So I can just read the notes we gotten from Bina. It says here she has some notes from when she read it and did her summary of it. In an alternate history, what would have happened if Tyrion actually had sent Sansa off? Do you think it would have been different?
I don't think it would have made much of a difference because eventually the Lannisters do win. So and Tyrion basically loses consciousness for a few days, right? Yeah. So she would have had the same fate as Tommen, which was just simply being brought back to King's Landing.
Yeah.
Because Tyrion isn't in control anymore.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on the same page. I mean, of all the moments in the books, I mean, this seems like the least of the linchpins of everything. I mean, stuff like Theon taking Winterfell or Robb banging Jane Westerling, stuff like that really changes everything. People could have killed someone, being in the situation of could have killed someone who ends up being a real prick. That seems to be linchpins, but this one, it seems like it would have ended up the same way, right? Essentially.
For the most part, yes.
Yeah.
It could have bigger impacts later on with Sansa not getting any of Cersei's drunk advice.
Oh yeah, I mean, she wouldn't have started to feel sorry for Cersei. So if that has an impact on later books, that might make a difference.
Yeah.
But that's in Casey's part of this of the Blackwater episode. So let's not take that in advance. So Venus also says that she thinks that Tyrion's awesome to even think how he might have saved Sansa, even as he rides into battle. Yeah, I mean it's true. I've always liked Tyrion, even though he's completely. Well, Tyrion is like in this last episode of this reread. There was a discussion about Tyrion and how he's essentially just as flawed as any of the other characters, and very removed from the daily problems of any of the normal folk in Westeros. But he's still the one who has the strongest tie of the main characters we have. I mean, apart from Arya when she starts traveling the road, he's essentially the one who's.
What about Davos?
Oh, Davos, yeah, but he doesn't have any agency as of yet to do anything about it, and he doesn't do anything to change the status quo. Well, Tyrion does to some extent protect whom he can, and other situations he just doesn't care. Like in general, a lot of the Lannisters in the start of these books seems to be hidden away and not really connected with the people, and as the book goes on and they're forced into situations where they have to realize some stuff, they tend to become even like more sympathetic characters, I would say. Okay, so
yeah, Jaime especially.
Yeah, Jaime, most of them, except for Tyrion.
Maybe gets worse.
Yeah, he gets worse, but that's because he's. Yeah, I mean.
He's trying to live up to the monster like his father.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe he's just done being trying to be a noble person when everybody treats him like a freak. But that's again taking the sorrows ahead of time. So Bina also says Heart Eater, a bit of a shit name, right?
But we have there are so many Valyrian swords in this.
Yeah.
This isn't a Valyrian sword. He's just named it because he has it's that's what he does. But so many Valyrian steel swords that have these very uncomfortable names. Like Widow's Wail and was Widow's Wail Joffrey's, or is it? Yeah. Anyway, that's also a very bad name. But there are Heartsbane. There's Lady Forlorn. There's they all have these sort of poetic names.
Yeah.
And then there's Heart Eater, which is just.
I mean, it's
I don't know. It's too
what was the one that the Lannisters had that got lost? Is Lion's Tooth?
A Bright Roar.
Bright Roar, yeah, because Lion's Tooth was
Bright
the one that
Roar.
was thrown into the river.
That's right.
That was Lion's Paw. Yeah.
Was it Lion's Paw? No, sure, it wasn't Tooth.
Lion's Tooth. No, you're right. I got it confused because they both end up getting thrown into a body of water and lost.
Yeah, I mean,
Lion's Paw, I think, was the one that Arya threw, because I think I just read it in one of the chapters.
well, I'm not sure if it's called Lion's Tooth or Lion's Paw, but essentially we're talking about the same sword. And I'm thinking we would need some sort of mermaid, right, to bring the sword back from Valyria, right? Their Bright Roar.
Or a Kraken.
Or what?
Or a Kraken.
Or Kraken, yeah. But that wouldn't be very... I mean, yeah, but how would a Kraken go about doing that? I mean, would you just see a giant squid rising from the sea? Maybe a stone squid because of all the stone skin, and then just handing whomever, Tyrion maybe, the sword?
Yeah.
I mean, that would be totally awesome. Totally what's happening.
Wow, I'm Victoria.
Yeah, that's totally what's happening. It's confirmed. Crackpot theory number 12, I think. If it goes under my hat, then yeah, about 12.
Tyrion's also not a dwarf.
No, he's actually just normal size, and everybody else is giants.
No, he's just going around on his knees.
Okay. Yeah, well,
Makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Like Tyrion at the trial, you just try me for being a dwarf, and he says you're not being tried for being a dwarf because he's not a dwarf.
oh yeah, that's totally what's happening there. That's what he meant.
Yeah. Just ignore the rest of it.
Yeah, okay.
All the rest of it.
Sure. So, do you have any notes on this chapter?
I had some notes. You want to go ahead, Nadia?
Yeah. Just that, a lot of people accuse Sansa of, not thinking of her family and kind of being a snob at times. But I think this is the chapter where you see her when she's in the sept and she's holding hands with an old woman and a little boy, and she just thinks, I don't care who these people are. I'm just glad of the comfort they're providing. And then she goes on to prays for everyone. People think that she never thinks of Arya, she never thinks of Jon, but at this point, she's praying for everyone. She prays for her siblings that are dead, Bran and Rickon, and then she prays for Robb and Jon and Arya. She prays for Sandor, who obviously she has a certain familiarity with. But she even prays for Tyrion, who basically just stopped and said one sentence to her, maybe I should have sent you off with Tommen to protect you. And she prays for him, even though he's a Lannister. I mean, she doesn't pray for Joffrey, but that's understandable.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that specifically. But yeah, you're right. You're totally right. I mean, in this chapter and the next chapter we have in by Casey, I feel like she is the prime example of how a lady should act during such a situation, while Cersei stands in stark contrast to that.
Another little note I had on this chapter. We had a recent ReRead episode in which we discussed our periods in great detail.
Yeah, I heard that one. Very enlightening.
Yeah, and as a result of those, we have come up with a few new names for our periods. And this chapter gave me another one. A red flower, your red flower blooming.
I also had the same coming up with, and it's staying at the Red Keep.
Oh, I like that one. I like that one. That's like we have one of our most southern cities in Denmark. It's called Red Town. So we just say that we have people visiting. We have family visiting from Red Town.
Nice.
So yeah, there's a lot
flows
of those.
in town.
So yeah, there's a lot of those terms there. I also made a note for that specific situation. I mean, she asks if there's only one God, who does he listen to? Which prayers do he listen to? The mothers or the warriors? And I would answer to that all or none, because yeah, either the God exists or doesn't. So I
like how she's kind of missing the point of what Septa Mordain was saying there, though. Like, the mother and the warrior are the same, because when you're a mother, you're a badass.
Oh, is that the point?
Well,
I didn't get that either.
I think so.
I think what she was questioning was basically at the same time people are asking the mother for mercy. Basically, they're asking for deliverance from war. And then there also, at the same time, there are other people who are asking the warrior to make them stronger, to make them better fighters, so that they can win this war. And it's kind of like, in a war, somebody has to lose. A lot of people are going to die, so it's not exactly going to be merciful.
No.
So I think she's just questioning that, which is going to be the upper hand at the end of this? Is the mother going to be? Are very few people going to die, or is it going to be a very bloody battle, but sort of with a conclusion at the end of it?
Well, to maybe go a little ahead into the other chapters, just for the notion of it, if all Stannis' boats had burned on the Blackwater, and not just a quarter of them, or a third of them, wouldn't the battle probably have been over then? If there wasn't any boats to make a bridge over the Blackwater with, battle then have been over?
Are you also including the troops that were on the banks when it started burning?
I mean, if the troops were on the bank, they would have been cut off if there wasn't any way of reinforcement, right?
Yeah.
So they would essentially have been taken care of. But as long as there was a bridge like that, they got a lot more people over. So I'm just thinking. Yeah. Do you think that the boats burning, all of the boats are burning, if that had happened, would the Stannis still have gone through with the rest of the battle, or would he have retreated and then maybe found another way, or just lay siege on the city instead?
I think at that point the only thing you can do is retreat, because you're stuck on the other side of the river. How are you going to get across? And you have no boats left.
Yeah. Anyone else?
So,
There's 7 gates.
Sorry?
Isn't there 7 gates? Wasn't the point of a boat so that you could fin down the guards on the wall so that you could pierce through at one of the gates? Then you attack 3.
Well, the point is that you attack multiple gates, but not all of the gates are accessible from inland. You have to go along the Blackwater, and thereby also along the wall to get into it. So the easiest way to get over to some of the gates is actually to sail over and attack it that way. So the difference is that if they could only attack one gate, then all of the King's Landing's forces could have massed on that gate and then completely hold them back. So I also think that the battle would have been lost if all the boats had been burned on there, and then in essence then the Mother's mercy would have been met in a way, because then the most people that could survive would have survived.
So if it clarifies for anyone, I posted some pictures in the doc of the gates that are mentioned within these 3 chapters, according to the map on the Song of Ice and Fire app.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I have my own little special, but yeah, definitely. So yeah, the river gate seems to be the one that you have to sail over to get to. and the top 4 gates are pretty much out of reach. So you'd have to attack the River Gate and the King's Gate and the Lion's Gate, right? That's the 3 that was mentioned, right?
Yeah.
So the River Gate is also the Mud Gate. Yeah, it's the River Gate. It's called the Mud Gate. So if you wanted to attack the River Gate, you'd have to cross over by boat. That's pretty much necessary. Yeah. So it seems like it's quite obvious that they need to attack on multiple gates, or else they wouldn't be able to get through. And if just one of the gates fell, that they could probably get in.
Bling reserve some other gates and store the attack. They blow through up one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, they
would...
Sorry?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I don't have anything.
Oh, I was just thinking about it. I'm like, that would be a really interesting approach, though, to attack the city by. If you tried to attack at all of the gates, they'd have to spread their forces internally to defend each one.
Yeah.
So if they had tried a more multi-pronged approach than just by the ships coming up the river from the bay and then Stannis meeting them at the southern bank of the Rush after coming up the King's Road.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they could have gotten away with it.
I mean, it seems like it's difficult to move your troops along the King's Road because it goes so close to the King's Landing.
That's not possible from them because they're coming from Storm's End. So basically the thing is that King's Landing is on the north bank of the river, right? And Storm's End is towards the south of King's Landing. So when they come up, they basically end up on the south bank of the river, which is their... they've basically sent 2 armies, right? They've divided into 2 parts. One comes up by sea and the other one comes up by land. So the majority of their forces have come by land, right?
Yeah.
And the problem is that they have no way to get across.
But if they had... What I was thinking is if Davos had split their fleet more and landed like north of the Iron Gate and come around the city the other way.
Oh, like that?
Then that would have been...
Like going inland, north and inland.
Oh, there would have been a lot of ferrying, I guess.
No, that the problem would have been the main part of the army would still have been stranded on the south bank, and the people inside the city, if they knew that the entire fleet had landed in this place, what they could do is that they could concentrate their entire forces on the Iron Gate, right? And then defeat this part of the army while the other one is still stranded.
Well, I guess the problem too would be because Rosby's right there, so you'd have to maneuver in between King's Landing and Rosby without being fallen upon.
Yeah, it looks like you have.
And they don't know where Tywin is, so if they tried to cross the river west of King's Landing, so I guess they did do the best approach.
Yeah, it also looks like it's if it feels, and as far as I can see in the maps, it looks like the only way to get over to King's Landing outside of away from the Blackwater is actually to go a lot further up the Blackwater Rush, which means that it would delay their attack a lot. So, I mean, if they were pressed for time, or at least they knew that they were pressed for time, then they must have had... This was the way they had to do it.
Because they're trying to get ahead of Tywin. They don't know where his host is exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. So they could have been caught by him at any time. Yeah, I guess that's true. If they really had the numbers, they could, though. That might be what we might see with Dany if she ever makes it across, is an approach like that.
She has dragons. Makes all bets are off, essentially. She just flies over and burns the stuff.
And the thing is, they're not just attacking at one gate. They're attacking at both the Mud Gate and the King's Gate. The problem is they're both on the riverfront.
Yeah. Even if you tried to move the forces around over the Blackwater Rush further up, you would still have to move forces along the wall to get to the Bloody Gate, to the Mud Gate, and that would mean extensive casualties. So, yeah, I think it's not a bad idea to ferry people over. I mean, it's just they didn't take into account Tyrion and his ingenuity, essentially. Right? I feel like I'm right.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you're right. I mean,
I'm always right, you know. So.
because
Are
their
we
hosts.
discussing the Davos chapter now? Because there's
No, we'll get into the other ones. I'm just.
okay.
It's just
No,
this whole thing
said-
flows. If you want to talk about one thing in one chapter, it sort of spills into the other one because.
Yeah. What you just said about Tyrion's tricks. Basically, the guy who's commanding the Stannis fleet, Sir Imry Florent, he says, he doesn't give much stock to the pyromancers because he thinks, they're not really effective anymore. So they can't produce large amounts of wildfire. So,
Right.
they can't use that.
Mm.
But
No, I have notes about that.
we know that because of the dragons,
Yeah.
their spells are more effective now, so they're producing a lot more, and that's not something that they've accounted for.
Okay, so we have Marie here.
Hey, hi.
Hey.
Did I miss the beginning, or should I just, I don't know, because I've been kind of waiting, but not knowing what was going on.
Oh, I did try to send you a request. I just didn't.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know what went wrong because I just, I was here and basically I don't think I did anything to block anyone, but okay.
But yeah, essentially, I took what you put in the Google Doc and just put it into the search bar of Skype, and
Yeah, it didn't
I
work.
think I added someone. So if it's not you, then
Well, that might be a
hey,
mistake. I mean-
Nadia Marie.
Okay, well, I'm here now. It is. I'm sorry for the the little mess up.
Well-
If you have anything to say about the Sansa chapter, this would be a good time to.
Oh, yeah. How long have you been on that? Like, well, I'm one of the Sansa lovers, so
Oh, good.
I guess. Yeah, I know. So yeah, no, I don't know what you said about it, but what I noticed here is that we don't say it enough. Sansa is indeed a kind of, I mean, she's childish, but she's also just genuinely nice, right? I mean, she's trying to help Lawless, and she thinks about what other people are going through, and she thinks about herself, obviously, but not only. And I think I think it's really important about her that she wants to do good eventually. But yeah, other than that, I just Cersei's awful to her and Joffrey, but we knew, and yeah. That's that's my thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've already said that we feel that Sansa has been given a bit of mud flack, and it seems like this and the next Sansa chapter kind of is the prime example of her actually being a decent person, at least more than people tend to give her credit for.
Yeah, definitely. And she's also praying for Tyrion, which I thought was nice. I mean, she adds the Hound to her prayers, but also Tyrion. So that's good. I mean, that's nice of her.
Maybe she has prophetic dreams and she knows that he's gonna be her husband.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, he just said that he wanted to protect her, so that's probably.
Yeah, he did.
Prayers for Sandor Clegane are very touching. She says, calm his fury, which is his biggest issue, really.
Obviously.
Speaking of Sansa, really? Think about she actually gave Joffrey some lip this time, right?
Yeah, she did. But always. Yeah, it's awesome. But always with the right tone, right? Like she's not being too. She's not being. Yeah.
Yeah, she has a pretty good sensation of what she can say and what she can't say. How far the line can goes.
Yeah.
And I think, well, I got the feeling that after these exchanges between her and Joffrey, it seems like that's what a lot of people are starting to respect about her, that she sort of finds a way to to outmaneuver Joffrey in a way where she still gets to be defiant, but not in a way that he actually is clever enough to pick up on.
Yeah, definitely. She's good with this. She's not annoying him too much, but she still says kind of what she thinks. Not all of it, obviously.
And she's obviously trying to goad him into sort of jumping in the middle of battle and getting himself killed.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But she doesn't make it too obvious.
Yeah. I mean, I never really disliked Sansa, ever, really. But this situation specifically got me to, like, say, you go, girl, essentially, in a much more manly way. That's, yeah, I really thought that this was a good situation where she kind of used her. Yeah, as I said, I would have to stop the call to check if the recording was okay. It seems like we didn't actually drop off. It's just the Skype recorder is a lying son of a bee.
I think Skype recorder does it like in pieces. So occasionally you'll get a notification that the recording just ended.
Yeah.
But it's still.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, I know.
Well, you know how I always calculate it is whoever posts it, and I go by what they're saying is their time. Like, okay, you want to do it at 10 and you're wherever. Then I just go, if it's 10 p.m. in that place, what time is it in California? And that's how I always get here on time.
Yeah.
Because it's too hard to think about all the... Like, I didn't even know until I started podcasting that you guys in Europe and everywhere else in the world did daylight savings time.
Well,
because some people here don't do it. Like Arizona doesn't do it.
Yeah, well, we're still quite stupid about that, even here in Europe. I mean, we should have abolished that for a long while ago.
You know who came up with that concept?
I'm not quite sure who did it, but it's definitely
Benjamin
stupid.
Franklin.
Yeah, idiot. I hate him. Hashtag summertime sucks.
Yeah, but why?
Why it sucks? Well, first of all, why do you need to change your...
No, but why did...
I don't know.
Why do you need to change the time during the day?
Yeah, it seems like it's something...
It's archaic.
Yeah, it's something...
It's from, like, the crops and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so you'd have longer time to work in the daylight hours.
Yeah, that's supposed to
back
be
back when
the
you
knowledge.
Didn't have, hydroponic growing and 24-hour world.
So I have a few closing notes on it. I mean, I just thought that this is the first real information we get about the Faith of the Seven, right? Like extensive. We see a mass, and we see actually a ceremony going on that we haven't actually experienced before. So, am I the only one that's quite fascinated about that?
Yes, I'm fascinated.
I love everything about, like, when you see the inner workings of a religion, seeing how what kind of symbolism they work with, and how they try to convince the masses that they have power over them.
One thing I found interesting about that ceremony or the service in the Sept is the hymn that he writes, "Gentle Mother, Font of Mercy."
Mm.
If you sing it to the tune of Holy Father, Strong to Save, it completely matches up. And I don't know if he did that on purpose, but the phrasing of it and the cadence would line up perfectly with that.
Yeah, there's also a Christmas song that works with. I don't actually remember which one. There's the I don't actually remember, but there's also the dun 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 dun.
Oh, that's Ode to Joy.
Yeah, that's also the one that works. A lot of those songs work actually, but there's also a Christmas song that works.
So I had a couple of notes on this chapter.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, after Joffrey makes her kiss Heart Eater and explains that he'll command the three whores, she, in her head, says the thought made Joff smile. And Joff is a nickname that I often associate with Cersei using. And it just kind of struck me. I wonder if Cersei has like a similar stream of internal insults or jests going on, but never even admits them to herself, or how this could demonstrate Sansa becoming like Cersei as far as her relationship with Joffrey goes.
So more like a relative, less romantic, or what?
Or, I don't know, it's just a funny way to refer to him. You know, it's very familiar. And to me, when I dislike someone, the way that I would treat them or address them is as formally as possible and very coolly, you know. But Joff's kind of a light, like, oh, hey, it's my buddy Jack, you know?
Yeah.
So it makes me wonder if when Cersei refers to him as Joff, is that as friendly as I've always interpreted it, or is it more cold, or did Sansa just pick this up from her and it just slipped out, or does it draw a parallel between Sansa becoming hard-hearted like Cersei, or putting on one display and internally having another?
Well, we can of course assume that Joff is short for jerk off. So, so of course she hates her son and gave him this name just in jest to mess with him. So,
but could it be like she doesn't have the same respect and admiration she had for him before, and so it's kind of, I mean, in her head, he doesn't even deserve his full name, you know, right? She doesn't respect him like she used to, and so I don't know, but yeah,
no, that's a good point. Yeah,
that might totally be like that. I think so as well. I think that the idea of her not having any respect and therefore just using whichever name comes handy totally fits with the situation. I think that's pretty much what I think now as well.
Could also be with her being a victim of abuse.
Yeah.
Well, like a Stockholm thing, or
not quite Stockholm. In abuse cases, you have lots of things like people wanting to look really good for the person who's abusing them and thinking of them quite fondly, even though they're being terrible to them.
Or it could have just been that George was too lazy to write Joffrey.
Yeah, maybe he just slipped up.
Yeah.
Maybe we're overthinking this.
No, I don't think so.
No, never. Not on me, okay? So my other thing was, Sansa is a lot more passive in this chapter than usual, which highlights her helplessness and how unresponsible she is in this situation on the eve of battle. There's nothing she can do. She really has no part to play here other than sort of walking through the motions. And all she can do is pray. And so I think that highlights specifically her, moment here, but also kind of the rest of the city and the small folk. She's lining up with them more as far as not being able to do anything or control it and not really wanting it. And then she has a lack of exchange dialogue, which highlights her solitude and her captivity in this chapter.
Well, I didn't think about it like that. Good point. I mean, if you try to go into the specifics of literary elements, yeah, sure.
I believe specifically asked to do that on the forum.
Yeah, someone. I mean, that's and I'm not criticizing you for it. I'm enjoying it. So,
no, I'm kidding.
So thank you, Hannah. Thank you for your hard work.
You're welcome.
See,
I was really
student Hannah has done her homework properly. You could also take from her example, kids.
And then just the meeting between Sansa and the Stokers on the bridge going into Maker's Holdfast, where Shay is present for one, so we have paths crossed there. And kind of my biggest question is, what is really going on with Lawless? Like, why doesn't she want to go in? I mean, I know she's been traumatized, but...
Well, I would personally think, if I can say something about it, I would personally think it's just because she had a really bad experience last time she tried to ride up to the Red Keep. I I would say that's probably just it. That she's still traumatized from the last experience. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Okay, so I have one last thing. So the whole city started singing the hymn, or did they? Because Sansa says like it seems like the whole city started singing the hymn, and if so, is that a tradition? Is that something you actually do on the eve of battle, or on the day of battle?
I think it's probably just the people. It just seems like the whole city is singing it.
Yeah, well, she kind of feels like it's like that because when she goes out and goes back, she seems like it says that it seems like the song is almost deafening out the cries from battle, almost, but not completely. So, and she also says that people outside of the sept also sings and whatever. So maybe not the whole city, but a lot of the civilians seem to be singing, right?
Mm.
Well, she does say that the highborn people are in the sept, but people from the city are in the great sept of Baelor, I guess. So they are probably singing there too. But I think it's more of a kind of, for her, it's such a big moment of communion with everyone else. So it seems like everyone is singing, but it's a great way, I think, of writing what's happening and the whole city being scared and on the eve of battle, and I guess that's what I think. But
oh, and I actually remember which Christmas song it was. It's "Deck the Halls with Bells of Holly." If you sing, yeah. If you sing that, if you mouth the words, you can see that it actually fits up as well. Actually, that's what Roy Latrice does. he sings the Mother's Mercy in takes the.
Oh God, no! Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm quite serious.
He's the worst.
He's the best. Come on, he's everyone's favorite pirate.
Stuff of nightmares.
I love him.
I hate him.
Again, every time we get to the wedding night of Peter and Lysa, that's just.
Oh God.
I've never even heard it, and it sounds terrible.
It's so
gonna
good.
be terrible.
If
I was so disappointed. I bought them all on Audible, and it was god awful, and I could only listen to it for about 2 minutes.
Well,
Brian.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, the pitar part, that's the best. And you can't even, nothing trumps that ever.
I hate it.
I mean, when we get to that episode, I'm gonna specifically request that I'm gonna be the editor and the moderator on that one, and you guys gonna hear some sick shit. I'm telling you.
Sounds like a full castle waiting to happen.
Yeah, sure. Why not? So, does anyone have anything else to add to this chapter?
I think with Sansa, there's some historical parallels to Ethelred, Alfred's daughter.
I don't know
who
that.
Was she was the Queen of Mercia during the Viking control time in England. And she was considered a great diplomat, but also fought in several battles. But her father was somebody who thought the Vikings was extremely pious and was very clever. And there was also a great politician who taught her a lot about politics and spying. So he was pretty much a combination between Baelish and Eddard.
Yeah, because I was just about to say, ask you if you meant that Eddard was actually clever and a spy master and whatever. I was just about to object to that.
Yeah, we didn't see him during Robert's rebellion.
So yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I haven't heard of that story, but probably, yeah. I mean, George is pretty much into English history, so he would probably known about that as well.
Well, Manslader's got quite a few ties to Alpha the Great as well. And Baylor the Bird is very similar to Alfred. He sneaked into a Viking camp and played music for them while he looked at all their numbers of troops and scouted all like their weapons and everything.
Right. Well, maybe you should look into that. Maybe we should look into that then, because seems interesting. Well, maybe for another cast. But yeah, definitely. That seems quite interesting.
Yeah, bring that up again when we get to that Matt's chapter.
Yeah, and maybe put
the continuation of our actual history, Song of Ice and Fire being inspired by actual history.
Yeah, exactly. We can put that
Dina
in.
And I did a couple of episodes of.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But yeah, thank you for that tidbit of information. Anything else on the Sansa chapter?
I just noticed a funny sentence that Sansa thinks that Cersei looks strangely innocent in white, and I just thought it funny, the strangely innocent, because she's not obviously, but it's strange that she looks innocent for Sansa, and I think it's she knows who Cersei is now, and it's good to see her evolve.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, yeah, I just also like the whole Cersei part. We start now, but it evolves later on to something even more with the addition of imbibing of alcohol. But yeah, Cersei is right now in a sort of a Mercurian mood, and I feel like, for me at least, when I read it, I felt like, what is she up to? What is her deal right now?
She's the Kool-Aid man.
She acts almost too nice for the situation, even though she's kind of a bitch still, but she is still nicer than you would expect in the situation.
This part in the show is like one of my favorite scenes in the show of Lena Headey as Cersei. The way she talks to Sansa. Same thing, acting nice, but really a total bitch.
Yeah, I think so. I think that there are a few tidbits, especially from season 2 and maybe season 3 also, that even though the season as a whole sucked balls, these things kind of weighed up for it, at least. When you look back at it, you can see, well, the Battle of the Blackwater was pretty cool, and the scene between Sansa and Cersei at the Blackwater battle there, that was also quite cool. So
yeah.
But it just seems like we only remember the tantrum from Dany. Where are my dragons? I mean, you say that Word of Treason's depiction of the books are it's atrocious. I counter with that depiction is completely. It almost got me to take a break from the show.
Yeah, it was pretty silly.
Okay, so before we move on, I just have to ask, Marie, this is your first linear reread. Have you joined on any other podcast before?
Yeah, no, I haven't joined on any podcast before.
So this is your very first time?
Yeah, it is, definitely.
Oh, good to know. So we'll try to be gentle, but we'll have to have some information first. So you have to tell us.
Yeah.
How did you get into the fandom?
Well, my boyfriend really wanted to see the show, but I'm a book first kind of girl, so I just I had to read them first, which I did, and then I really got into it quite strongly. First in French, because I read them in French at first. And then I didn't have the 5th book on hand in French, so I read it in English, and from there on, and I just and I discovered about VOK about 6 months ago.
Was
just
it me?
A friend.
Was that your
N-
first time?
No, it was probably, it's just a friend sent me a link to one of your podcasts. I think it was one about the preview chapters, which I didn't even listen entirely because I had only read a few, and I don't want to see the recaps of the one George read in convention. So I stopped halfway through podcast, and then I started to listen to the linear rereads and loved them. So yeah, I figured I would join at some point.
Sure. But be honest.
Here I am.
I'm the reason you joined, right? Because
I don't know, really.
Okay.
Just tell them
people
what
are really funny.
Come on.
Yes, Patrick, you're absolutely the reason I wanted to join.
So see, that's what I'm saying. I'm the best part of this show.
Obviously.
Guys,
Patrick,
yeah?
you're funnily enough one of the reasons why I was really nervous to join.
Oh, really? How so?
Yeah, I was like you and Varley. And Varley was on my very first one, and I was like petrified because you just seemed so like critical, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to live up to any expectations of these people.
Well,
So I'm glad that our first one together, I've had a few under my belt now, and I feel confident.
Yeah, the jury's still out though, so. So I'll give you some notes afterwards to tell you if.
Okay, perfect, awesome.
Do you want it like an American grade system, or do you like just 1 to 5? What's your preferred way?
Dealer's choice.
Okay.
Obviously, whatever you think is best.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll let you know.
Okay, great.
So yeah. Okay. So other than that, what's your favorite character then, Marie?
Oh my god! For a few months, I mean, when I decided I wanted to join at some point, I thought they ask that to everyone. I have to think about it, and I didn't. So I don't know. I love Sansa, as I mentioned. Jamie a lot, and
I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna disappoint you, Nadia. I also like John. I mean, I like his story at least.
I like John. I know. Anya is the one who hates John.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, I like John too. I really enjoyed his story line in book 5. And yeah, I guess that's it.
Oh, but you forgot one, Victorian.
I love Tyrion, but I'm
No, not that
Victorian.
one. Victorian, of course.
Oh right. Oh no. I'm
No.
kind of.
No, don't say yes. Don't say yes.
I understand the importance of the Greyjoy characters in the in the story, but I don't really enjoy the chapters.
That sounded like an easy let down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What she's trying to say is Victorian is the worst. Absolute worst.
Of all the characters, he's the worst. Seriously. Yeah, well.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, I am not going to go into that even more because everybody knows my opinion
we don't have time for that.
on that. But, well, just check out VOK #300 and you'll know my opinion on that one. #Victorian, the prince was promised.
You listened to Medieval Vagina, right?
Yeah.
Did you hear the part where, was it Casey?
Yeah. She thought that I was kidding. I'm not Casey. I'm not kidding.
No, that was me. But somebody was talking about how they compared her to like their relationship to Peter and Sansa. And I was like, who the fuck does that? Like, I know Patrick identifies with Victorian, but I think he's more or less kidding.
But I'm not kidding.
So you're not kidding at all. That's gross.
But what do you mean? I'm not comparing myself to Peter, but Victorian is a character that has a lot of potential. He's much more flawed than any one of the other characters. Okay, we shouldn't go into this. I'm gonna piss people off.
He has a volcano arm.
Yeah, he's essentially. Well, no. Let's stop it now. I can just feel myself going on about this. I'm not gonna do that.
Are you saying he's Darth Vader?
He's even cooler than Darth Vader.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Okay, so let's move on to the next chapter then. That's Davos 3. And who did that one?
Me.
Johanna.
Okay. On the roiling Blackwater Bay, Davos Black Betha is sliding through the ripping winds with his son's ships, Wraith and Lady Nymeria, in a good line with his own. He has a brief moment of fatherly pride at his son's captaining prowess before ordering the sails down on the rest of the fleet ships and continuing toward their soon-to-be bloodied aquatic battlefield by oar alone to avoid the cloth sails being caught by scorpion throws of flame. On the advice of Sir Imry Florent, the newly appointed Lord High Captain of King Stannis' fleet, after coming over to the cause after a shadow warned them Storm's End. Sir Imry is controlling the Fury as Stannis chose to ride with his army host up the King's Road to the southern edge of the Blackwater Rush across from the Muddy Gate. Davos recalls a war council called together by Florent a few days previous, where Seaworth and his sons were assigned to the starboard wing positions. His sons had taken it as a sign of great honor, but Davos called it perilous. He knew they judged him for this, just a simple smuggler from Flea Bottom. He could not disagree with the charge, but this sort of battle was new and frightful to a man who spent his career slicing silently through swells and shallows to trade in secret, not open and in the light of day, engaging with an enemy such as this with the city's high walls to secure them. As the war horns blast, Davos spots Stannis and the ground troops. The host gives a rallying cry as they prepare for the engagement. With hundreds of ships and thousands of oars cresting and troughing in the salt water, Davos has a sudden flash of insight. His utter familiarity with his native city, its walls and stones, its 3 high hills, every inch of its back streets, and the lay of its land are not yet gone from memory. But it is not nostalgia that conjures up these memories, though. It is the 2 new towers guarding the mouth of the bay. They therefore can only serve the enemy's purposes during this day's business. It dawns on him that they are both far too small to hold a garrison, and the Southside Tower's base is wading into the water. He catches a glimpse of something shiny and metallic and realizes it's a boom chain after all. He senses the imminent danger in the fact that the chain has not been raised to bar their access to the bay. Instead, it remains lowered to permit them to oar their way closer to the shore and high walls of the Crown City and its Ruby Keep. But he gets no time to further analyze these devices or the plan behind their construction as the war horns blow to quicken their speed to a swift battle pace. As the fleet of King Stannis begins to pass beneath the shadow of massive and war-ready castle, Davos takes stock of the bastard king's ship that await an anchor. He notes several galleys present, but his attention is rapidly pulled toward the absent warships. He worries their positioning makes it impossible to flank, and the boom chain will block retreat if need be. Additionally, the only 3 vessels in the Lannister fleet capable of matching those of the fiery stags are nowhere to be seen. Davos, quote, tastes a trap, but is at a loss to identify it. Just then, the first shower of fiery arrows and burning pitch begin to rain down from the battlements of the giant keep. He takes note of a soldier falling off the cat as the first to die. Quickly, the Battle of Blackwater Bay turns into a bloodbath. Ships collide, and trebuchets hail hulking stones into the water and smash through oak deck. No volley can be given by Fury as she is out of range. The Baratheon fleet sees some ships make it to land and release archers to attack the towering walls, but knights pour out of the keep and cut through them like a hot knife through fresh butter. Seaworth spots the hound amid the clattering chaos. He and his son Allard take Betha and the Lady Nymeria to ram Lady's Shame off the Queen Alysanne. And that's when Davos spots the first swirls of green venomous wildfire. Having been warned of this eventuality by Sir Imry, he is not panicked and resumes his command. He disables and takes control of the White Hart as arrows, pitch, stones, and men continue to fall. Davos spies the Swordfish with its vainglorious battering ram making for a Lannister Hulk, her captain on tent, of getting use of her expensive namesake lance-like prow. And all too late, Davos Seaworth sees the trap that he sensed had been laid all along. Trailing bright green behind the smashed vessel, like snakes writhing in the grass, wildfire pours from a belly fully stocked with the alchemist's substance, the liquid death. He tries to call out to the swordfish, but it's no use, and with the din of splintering wood and a soft hot wind, the Onion Knight finds himself slamming into the brackish water. When he surfaces, he sees a vibrant emerald hellscape. Before him, dead and dying, scorched and frying, great ships are reduced to so many bonfires, littering the bay. He thinks he may have a chance of making it to the Lysini that Salladhor Saan had been ordered to keep well in the rear, but the current whips him around in a vortex of terror, and the old smuggler captain beholds the raised boom acting as a catch-all for wood, bodies, and the uncontainable jade banshee let loose by the lion. End of.
Wow. Did you write this yourself?
Yes, last night.
Very well. Very good, I have
Thank you.
to say.
Thanks
Did
very
you
much.
actually rhyme some of that stuff in there?
Yeah, there was rhymes and there was poetic
Yes, I was trying to be
descriptions.
alliterative.
Well,
I've been watching Homeland, and when she goes crazy, she does all the, she talks in the same words, like V for Vendetta. So I don't know, kind of got in my head.
well,
That
it
was
worked.
good.
It worked for me.
Cool.
So,
Yeah,
Do you need a cigarette?
almost, man. That's one of the things I do admire in a person. So very good on you,
Oh,
man.
good. I'm glad I could meet your very high expectations
Well,
a little bit.
yeah.
Thank you.
So, on that bombshell, any notes on it? Then, does anyone have anything to say about it, or did?
I had to Google starboard and port just to understand what was happening in this chapter.
Oh, really?
I mean, I know it means right and left. One is right and one is left. I just didn't remember which one it was, so I had to check.
The easiest way to remember it is that port is left, and they both have 4 letters.
That's how I memorized it today. Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of. I remember. I don't know how many times I've read this. Probably only a couple of times. But it's. I think I understood it far better this time because I actually sort of had this picture in my head of where everything was. So it's just kind of much easier to understand a battle sequence if you know where everything is and where they're trying to.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed is that I wonder if George intentionally did it or it's just kind of happenstance, but Dan is changing his sigil to the fiery heart with the stag inside. So, like a stag on fire is kind of foreshadowing to this moment.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. It kind of just
and they
also...
points out that it's a bad idea because if he had gone with the old sigil, then, people who don't like Joffrey, who still remember, starving to death, would have just, supported Stannis because it's, it's something.
And Davos points that out
Robert.
here,
Yeah, and they loved Robert. Everyone loved Robert, even though he's a shitty king. But, they might have supported Stannis simply because he was his brother.
Well, he wasn't that shitty. I mean, they had almost 2 solid decades of peace under his rule.
Well, that was John Allen, not Baratheon.
They didn't know that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I also wrote in my notes, Fiery Heart equals brand confusion. You essentially just misbranded yourself. I mean, yeah, it looks cool, and when you look at a person at distance, the heart and the fire on a breast of a person kind of symbolizes that they have a certain fervor for the cause, and that's of course cool. But in this situation, you should think more about what your brand is portraying and symbolizing, and it does go a little. There's a little noise on the line, as you say in Denmark. A bit confusion there.
Yeah, but would it really have changed anything? I mean, I have the feeling that although this chapter is amazingly written and a lot of important stuff happens, also the thing that really changed everything was Tywin coming back with his army and people from Bitterbridge, and I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the actual importance of what's happening on the Blackwater, because Tywin crushes Stannis afterwards, and maybe if Stannis had. Okay, so obviously the fact that he couldn't go through immediately is what allowed Tywin to win afterwards. But I'm not sure the flag would have been of enough importance. I mean, the sigil would have been of enough importance to really change that.
Oh yeah, it's not important at all. But if we're talking about just these two armies, it might have been at this point. Davos doesn't know that there's that Tywin. I mean, they think that Tywin's on his way, but he doesn't know when he's going to get there. So he's judging it simply on the number of forces that are present there. So he's just thinking that if right now we had that sigil, it might have helped us.
What in a situation? What if some of the citizens had opened the gate for him, in the knowledge or in the notion that having a Baratheon coming in and saving them, or one with that banner, that might have persuaded them?
I don't think the citizens can open the gates because they don't have any weapons.
No, well, they can storm them. They stormed the Dragon's Keep and burn that down. So
yes, they have the numbers, but for enough of them to actually walk up the courage to go against armed men and open the gates, I'm not sure.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, and with no kind of network for it, like pre-planned action.
There was Antlermen. I mean, there was
but they're dead.
Well, are you sure that all Antlermen are dead? Because it doesn't seem like it afterwards. That there seems to still be sympathizers with that cause, even though it's.
Yeah, but aren't they like way back? They're in between like Duskendale and King's Landing, though.
Maybe you're right. I mean, I was just thinking that if someone had
made him pull.
If some of the guards had been sympathetic to Robert and to the Baratheon house, they could have easily opened the gate if they were enough. I mean, it's just saying that if a situation where a more clear brand would have won over some of the people in the city, and maybe enough people to open a gate, that could have changed the tide of battle totally.
I think the Gold Cloaks owe their allegiance to the Lannisters, not to the Baratheons.
The Gold Cloaks will waver in a second.
Well, exactly, and the Lannisters are the ones that are bribing them. So, and Stannis isn't going to do that. Everyone knows it. So, they'll take the chances with the Lannisters. But the thing is that that the citizens of King's Landing are already being suppressed actively, and they've been through a famine, right? So they're not very strong at the moment. So it would be really hard for them to storm a castle gate. And at this time, maybe at a time of peace they could do it. But right now, with Stannis approaching, the gates are too heavily manned for civilians to, make much of a difference.
You had something to say, Jock?
He's used contemporary means before, like having Davos do the smuggling, and he laid a trap, I think it was, with Fair Isle.
Yeah, I'm not sure quite what you mean. What your point is?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's ever been really stated that he wouldn't use bribery.
No, probably not. But
Stannis is actually one of the probably biggest inconsistent characters of them all.
So yeah, we got into that last episode, or Bina and the girls got into that last episode. Stannis is quite inconsistent, but is that because he is an inconsistent character to begin with, or is it because he has Melisandre
Lazy.
with him. Does the presence of her make him more inconsistent because he's teetering between honor and what needs to be done? I don't know.
Well, he's also quite inconsistent in the Winds chapter.
Yeah, well, it's a valid point at least. I don't have an opinion on on him at all. Stannis is one of the characters that doesn't really register on my scale of dislike or like.
I have more or less the same opinion.
So, I mean, yeah, he's there to do what needs to be done. I know this. That's essentially his character arc. He does. What
he seems almost like a placeholder, just a device.
Yeah, maybe even like a sort of a mentor to Jon in the sense that you can't always be honorable. You just have to do what needs to be done. You have to be more like you have to be more like iron than silver.
Yeah, his whole deal seems like he's more there in the story, just kind of to bring conflict now, and then later to bring the R'hllor religion and Jon together.
Yeah. And some people are going to hate this. Hashtag Greg. But yeah, I feel you, Anna.
Yeah, but it's also kind of, it's not easy having a really strong opinion about him since we don't have any POV, and obviously he seems like a really stern and a character that is basically there for the story and rather than for the character itself. But I think he's more interesting than that. Actually, we saw already in the prologue with Crescent that he is actually a really traumatized and confused character. I think he doesn't. I mean, he really struggles with both sides of him. The one that's kind of egocentric and frustrated from childhood and Robert and stuff like that, and the other side that just really wants to do the right thing and the true thing, and he doesn't always know how to bring those two sides together.
Sure, that's his backstory, but objectively, is he even living up to that or what? I mean, this is gonna piss off hashtag Greg so much because he's like, and you know, when you said nobody can really get very passionate about it, check out hashtag Greg.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, but we don't have a POV, so it's yeah.
Sorry?
You bet Victorian. Yeah.
Yeah. Like almost like me with the Victorian, but Victorian is more like the Ironborn. I'm just gonna give a short reason why I like the Ironborn. It's actually just because they sorta are the characters that represent my culture the best in not my culture as it is now, but the things that we look back on as the glory days of Denmark. So to be represented, that means that we sort of sometimes give some characters a pass, and that's why the Greyjoys usually, I mean, not all the Greyjoys, I mean, Euron and Balon are pretty sucky, so, but the rest are either bad but acceptable bad, or okay, and that's enough for us, for me at least. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think that Greg has the same thing. I think he just likes it that Stannis sort of reminds him of some of his Roman emperors that he likes so much.
Well, Stannis isn't really a Roman emperor. He's closer to an imperator.
Maybe, yeah. But he likes to compare everything to the Roman history. So and he has expressed that some of these actions that's been happening here in this book is quite similar to real history.
Mm.
Okay, but that's beside the point, because we have a lot more to discuss. And thing I want to ask is, did you pick up on the boat called the Laughing Lord? And do you think it was a reference to the Laughing Storm, which was a Baratheon lord?
Yeah, probably because it was also a Baratheon.
Yeah, I think so. I just picked up on that one. Read it this time. Another thing, would Davos have been a better admiral than Sermry?
Yes. I mean, do you even need to ask that? I think anyone would have been a better admiral.
But he...
Honestly, I think George kind of sets him up to be a failure from the beginning of the chapter. But
Yeah.
I don't think that things would have gone quite so badly for them if the wildfire hadn't been there.
No. They're kind of just counting on brute force, but as with rhinoceros beetles, which is kind of a weird way to explain this, sometimes brute is trumped by stealth, just like in the animal world. Sometimes you win by having the biggest guns. Sometimes you win by having a stealthy method to circumvent those guns, so to say.
I think, but what actually sealed their fate at the end was Tywin's arrival, and there was nothing really that they could have done about that.
No.
But even if Davos had been the admiral, I mean, he would have done things differently. But in the end, he would have sent scouts and so noticed the chain beforehand, and maybe not decided to attack on the river and basically stay on the sea. But I don't know if they could have, in any case, done enough to do so to win, because they had to attack at some point,
but the thing is,
and the wildfire was there.
If they had sent like scouting ships, what would have happened was that they would have realized that, okay, so their most important ships are missing right now. So where are those ships? And then they would have encountered the wildfire, right? So they would have sort of brought that out into the open. They would have found out about the chain, because Tyrion's entire plan basically was to lure their entire fleet inside, then raise the chain, right? So that basically the whole fleet will burn. But if you send in just a few ships, then either he raises the chain and traps those few ships inside, or he doesn't raise it at all, waiting for the entire fleet to come in so that they can burn, right?
Yeah.
So if they had done that, then they would sort of had the upper hand. And again, what would have happened was, I don't even remember what happens in the next chapter, but I think does Tyrion come up behind Stannis' fort that is still on the south side of the shore?
She tries to cross the Blackwater on the bridge of boats, essentially.
Yeah, that was stupid.
Yeah, he takes the postern gate and round and tries to smash the people on the shore underneath the gates, and that works essentially. But then people start crossing over the fiery bridge of boats, and then he has to try to stop that, and that's when everything fucks up.
Yeah, so it would have just been the difference would have been that they would have gone in with their eyes open instead of just sort of aiming an arrow blindly. That's
Yeah,
I feel
definitely.
like Stannis lost the battle in the storm.
You mean if you knew that it was a chain, you could probably sailed up to it and bombed the hell of the towers, right? Like with catapults or ballistas.
Yeah, they have
don't get why you
bits and
do
stuff.
that.
They can just bring down one of the towers.
Yeah, just
On
one
the
of them
sides.
needs to go down.
Exactly.
What did you want to say, Jock?
Well, he was doing nothing in that days. I feel like he lost a battle during the storm, which stopped his fleet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that was
I
bad
agree,
luck.
because but mostly what makes Stannis loses because of time. I mean, he doesn't attack soon enough, and Tywin has time to arrive there. And if he had taken the city before Tywin arrived, it would have been entirely different. And even with Tyrion plan working like it did, Stannis would have had the city maybe later, but he would have if Tyrion hadn't come back. I think at least he really had the numbers. Even if he still had enough ships to make his army cross the river, and it would have been enough after some time. But it would have been enough, I think. So had the fleet arrived maybe a week before that, it would have changed a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
So would Stannis have won if he hadn't left Melisandre behind?
No.
In any sense? Well, maybe if he didn't have to actually
Can
go.
Can she harness wildfire?
No,
We don't know.
probably not.
I don't think so.
Probably not. Yeah.
But
what else would she have done? Didn't she already foresee Renly attacking them from behind?
I don't remember that.
Yeah, she saw it. It was brought up during the Lenny and Stannis conversation that she saw Lenny defeating him at the Blackwater.
Both Stannis and Melisandre think that they've avoided that particular fate by killing Renly.
Yeah, but afterwards, Melisandre makes it out to look like if Stannis had brought her, she could have done something. Do you think, like, if she burned someone, that she might have gotten favorable winds or something like that? Is she at this point able to affect winds and whatever currents, so and such?
Well, at the very least, I think.
The thing is that both time Melisandre has basically gotten a win. So Stannis has been through a Shadowbaby, right? And she's already declared that Stannis cannot make any more Shadowbabies at the moment, right? So she can't send one in to kill Tyrion, right? So what else is she gonna do?
But at this point, Tyrion is not a key figure anymore. The defense would have gone on without him, even if he died on the Blackwater.
Oh yeah, but who else are they going to target? But that's basically Melisandre's. I don't know what you call it. That's how she operates. Basically, she kills out the person that's in charge, right? She takes out Renly, then she takes out Courtney Penrose. In this case, even if she does kill Tyrion, like you said, it doesn't make that big of a difference.
So Marie,
and Bronn still knows what to do.
So Marie, you were trying to say something?
Yeah, that. So later on, Melisandre, basically, at least she might have helped them get to the wall faster with favorable winds and everything. So I think that the only thing she could have done to help this get better is making the fleet arrive earlier. And we were saying that it's one of the things that could have changed everything. But I think once the battle would start, there was nothing she could have done.
No. Well, I don't know.
I don't think Melisandre can really affect winds because her magic seems to go as far as controlling light, shadows, basically anything that derives from light, like fire, and then shadows which come from light, like flames, right? And and she does glamours and stuff, which is again kind of a play of the light. So have we seen her doing any magic that affects anything other than light?
Yeah, the wind taking it to the wall.
But we don't really know, right? It could have been just chance and her saying, "Hey, I did that," and we don't know.
Yeah,
she does that a lot.
Well, well, maybe it's more like she foresaw that the winds would be favorable at this point, and just said that if you burn these people and pray a little, then the fiery god R'hllor will reward you with favorable winds. Maybe that's more like it. She foresaw it, that there will be good winds.
Yeah, that might be it. I was not saying that she could have done anything for the wind, but I think it would have been the only possibility for her to help with this battle. That's just the thing.
I mean, I completely agree. I don't have any specific idea of how far an extent her powers go as of yet. Well, we know later on she can do pretty cool stuff when she's close to the wall, but right now she's pretty much cut off from any sort of mana source, if you would describe it in that way. So yeah, I don't know. Probably not, but it's worth discussing anyway, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So I want to have a quote from the book when Davos he sees a stones from the three horse raining down on the men. He says that and turned living men into bone and pulp and bristle was one of my favorite quotes from this. Just so gruesome. I liked it.
Yeah, one of the things I really enjoyed about this chapter, and it goes with what you're saying, and also the previous chapter with Sansa, and the next one actually, is that it's really full of sounds and imagery, and I mean, it's the way the English language works. Obviously, we don't have that in French. I mean, we don't construct words based on how they sound, but so it's really vivid. You know, you can actually hear the sound of the catapults and the fire, and I think it's really incredibly written in that sense.
Oh yeah, George really does bring it to life, basically. And the image of the wildfire is also pretty amazing. You know, it's described as this demon which has, you know, these long fingers reaching out and burning things. It's pretty amazing.
Definitely. Yeah, I love the language, and especially that and the green snakes and the quote I just mentioned there. Those also things kind of just add to the whole experience of this. I mean, sometimes, well, the first few times I read this, I didn't actually focus that much on what happened on the boats and like the battle itself. I just kind of experienced the whole description. It's focused much more on the storytelling than the actual movements of the troops and stuff, which is quite uncharacteristic of me, I have to say. So kudos to Martin on that one.
Yeah, but also there's so many ships and so many. I mean, it's kind of hard to just keep track of. Okay, which one is which again, and what are they doing? So yeah, he both. I mean, we have a lot of movement and a lot of interesting battle strategy on water, and at the same time, the description is really strong enough to get us into it really deeply without the actual movement of every boat being that important, at least on a first read, I guess.
So maybe to flip it on its head, do you think that this chapter would have been good if there hadn't been such descriptive language? Do you think that it could have standed up as being one of the best chapters ever by just being like describing how the ships moved and then they exploded and essentially?
No.
Yeah, no. I think your question basically answers itself, but
so yeah, but it just struck me that thing that the meat of the this chapter essentially is the thing that it's kind of being masked by this flowery language that he uses, or to describe it. I don't think flowery is the right word to use in the specific situation, but yeah, very poetic language. I think that's essentially what kind of hides these facts from you, the notion that you're actually just reading a battle report, and that would be really boring normally. But because he writes it so well, it's like, oh yeah, this is nice. I love this. Pulp and bristle. Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, you're right. It just wouldn't have been the same, and but yeah, it would have definitely not have ranked the same in our minds.
Who did Tyrion pick to be captains of the boats on the Lannister side? I just have to note that must have been a pretty sucky job, especially if you knew what's gonna happen. You probably wouldn't have. But yeah.
Who did he send off to die?
Yeah, essentially.
I kind of wondered that too. Maybe he just had like a skeleton crew
Yeah, but who would he have chosen? He could have been like, hey, you guy over there. He could have chosen a lord. That would have been like a big problem if he'd done that. Like, yeah, you essentially put some lord out to die. So it'd have to be like normal people, common people. He would have put in as captains and whatever.
I have a big
Why not?
note about
Wow.
this, but I think it's more appropriate for the Tyrion chapter, so I'm gonna hold off.
I think Davos at one point is wondering about the names of the captains. Like he can't remember who the captains were. But I'm assuming that whoever is usually in command of that ship just has to go. Once Tyrion has decided that this ship is going, then whoever is the regular crew on that ship, that they're basically, it's basically their death sentence.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that you'd have to take into consideration, I mean, I don't know if he is or anyone is in this world, but the way I would look at it is if Stannis has a spy in King's Landing and we are like, okay, everyone's going out, but oh, you're a lord, so you can't captain your ship, you're going to stay with me, and he starts changing those kind of things up, it would have been a big tip-off to the fact that something was up.
Sure, but I mean, still, damn Tyrion. He's a cold son of a bitch in this consideration, yeah, right? That's just huh?
But then I think a lot of the time warfare is about tricking your opponent and basically sending people to die in one direction so that the rest of the army can attack from another direction. He's not the only person doing this. I mean, it's a pretty...
No. I would have done the same thing essentially, but yeah, still cold. I'm impressed.
Tyrion cold-hearted, but he would have done the same thing.
I'm impressed. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, thanks. Tyrion is not so big on being sensible to people he doesn't really know, so I guess it was probably a difficult decision, but he didn't really personally know the captains, so what the hell. And also he couldn't just put any random people there because they had to be still capable of actually being on the ships and attacking Stannis' fleet, because you can just stand there and it would have been weird, right? So
definitely, I think essentially, yeah, Tyrion did what had to be done, but it's still impressive that he chooses to just sacrifice a good part of his fleet to take out most of Stannis's. That's some next level commanding there.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, then let's move on to Tyrion. I'm pretty sure by elimination that it should be Nadia, right?
Yep, that's me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I was talking and I was muted. I don't know.
Oh,
Okay.
rookie mistake, Mama Wolf.
I know. I should know better by now.
Yeah. Go on.
Okay, so Tyrion 13. Pretending to be a gargoyle, Tyrion watches Stannis and Joffrey's fleets burn. Some of the ships are trying to escape, but there is no way out. The Goldcloaks are cheering, but Tyrion knows this is not enough to ensure their victory. He thinks of Stannis, who prefers to command from the rear, and wonders if he can hear the screaming. Joffrey is upset that his ships are also burning, but Tyrion knows if he had not sent so many ships, Stannis would have known it was a trap. Although the wildfire flames and the smoke make it impossible to see downriver, Tyrion knows Bronn would have raised the chain, trapping Stannis' fleet in the Blackwater rush. But some of the ships have managed to get away because the wildfire has not spread evenly enough. A few of the ships have landed under the city walls and put men ashore. Tyrion knows that enough of Stannis' ships have survived to bring his entire host across the river eventually, and he knows his own men will break if the fight goes against them. He sees men who've just landed on the riverfront and decides to carry out another sortie. He sends a message to the knight commanding the 3 whores, but Joffrey insists that the whores are his. Tyrion lets him go, but tells him to be quick about throwing the Antler men off the walls, as they'll need to start throwing stones again soon. Tyrion commands Sir Osmond to keep Joffrey safe. A runner comes to tell Tyrion that hundreds of men have landed on the tourney grounds, and they're about to ram the King's Gate. Tyrion gallops off in that direction, followed by Pod and Sir Mandon Moore. By the time they reach the King's Gate, it is already being rammed. There are enough men and horses to form a strong column, but the Hound is commanding at the King's Gate, and he refuses to go out again because of the wildfire. Tyrion realizes he's terrified of the fire, and his fear is rubbing off on his men. Tyrion knows they need a leader, and Sir Mandon just isn't the man for the job. He declares that he'll lead the sortie and calls for his helm and banner. Only a handful of men respond to his calls, so he shouts, "They say I'm half a man. What does that make the lot of you?" That shames more of the men into joining him. He asks the men not to fight for Joffrey or Casterly Rock, but because King's Landing is their city. He trots off, but can't dare look behind him to see if the men are actually following.
Very good. Yeah, great chapter. Much shorter than Davos's. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's about half the length of Davos's chapter.
Less, about
even less. So yeah. So, but we got a lot out of it, anyways, right? So.
Oh yeah, Tyrion's battle strategy, basically.
Yeah, essentially, his thoughts of. But the thing I've noted about it is that Joffrey is just trotting off happily to throw traitors over the wall, and just I love that little vision of him. Yeah. Yay! I get to punish traitors.
Yeah, I mean, Joffrey doesn't really get the big picture here.
Yeah, he's like, I get to play with my toys. This is gonna be a cool day anyways. No matter what, I got to play with my toys. I mean, he's just a kid still, at least at heart. A very sociopathic kid.
But isn't he like 13 or something? And Robb is 14 when he starts commanding his armies. So, you know.
Yeah, there's a difference. And I was especially like the way in the training session in the first book between him and Robb, it seems like, well, Joffrey's like saying, well, I'm so much more mature because I'm a king or a prince and stuff like that, and it's quite obvious that Robb is going to be the more mature one, even though he makes a lot of mistakes. He's still the mature one of the two in the end.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Joffrey's a spoiled brat. Robb had a father present. You know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of differences there.
And he didn't have Cersei, which is also a good thing.
Okay, so Hannah, go into it.
Or he didn't have Cat. Okay.
Yeah.
Get into your notes about this.
Okay.
I'll go to
Thanks. Okay, so first of all, I had that and I know we don't like to talk about the show, but there's some pretty big differences between the book and the show as far as their depiction of the Battle of Blackwater Bay. And I think we've all kind of seen that, and it's not really spoilery. So the big difference is that Davos sails the fleet into the bay and in the show and notices that there are no ships, and they set it at night rather than in the daytime like it is in the book. It's in the afternoon or early evening in the book, but in the show, it's the dead of night. So first of all, they just don't see the ships because it's a dark night. But as they do find a ship, they have this basically like a ghost ship comes in their midst. Then he notices the wildfire and then it blows up. So I think that was a big decision on the part of the show for two reasons. First of all, stylistically, setting it at night, I think they wanted it to be akin to the Battle of Helm's Deep in Lord of the Rings, both books and movie. I think that was a big draw for fans. But they wanted this to be where the ships were not captained to paint Tyrion as more heroic rather than villainous. But Tyrion says in the book, when Joffrey's bitching about how all of his ships have been blown up, they're watching the sea flower burst from the wildfire, and Tyrion says she was doomed. Tyrion knew. There was no other way. If we had not come forth to meet them, Stannis would have sensed the trap. And then a little bit down, he says, "It could not be helped," he told his nephew. "Our fleet was doomed in any case," which is true. They just didn't have the numbers. He spared their 3 biggest warships from it, but no matter how they go into this, let's say he didn't lay them with wildfire and lead these men to their deaths, that wouldn't have mattered. They would have been rammed and overtaken because they're just galleys against the many, many, many straight up warships that Stannis has been able to acquire in his fleet. So I don't think that it's like, well, damn, Tyrion, that's cold. I think, if anything, it's, you're giving them a quicker death than they would have if they hadn't engaged in battle. And he is ultimately right. The only thing that he could have done to save those men or those ships is to not face them in the water, let them land. But then now you're putting the walls at risk. There's no way you can outnumber them. You're totally at the wrong end of a bottleneck there. And so that's my big point about why his methodology here is it's not as harsh as it seems. And his reasoning is correct. My second point on it is, what if the dragons being present they weren't there to enhance the wildfire? How would that have changed the battle? How would that have made the outcome differently as far as the use of wildfire? And how would Tyrion have had to engage the rest of the fleet if they didn't have so much and it wasn't as destructive as it obviously turned out to be here? George calls it a Jade Holocaust, and Tyrion compares it to Aegon's Field of Fire. So those are my 2 things.
I think if he didn't have that quantity of wildfire, I think his strategy would have been very different. He had already, didn't he commission the chain before, or maybe at the same time as he commissioned the production of the wildfire?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So basically, if at the end of it he didn't have as much wildfire as he wanted, I think his strategy would have been completely the opposite, which would have been to prevent the fleet from entering the river. Basically, they would have raised the chain, as Davos said, they would have raised the chain before the ships got there.
Right, but then they just turn around and they go up the other side of the bay towards the Iron Gate. And so Tyrion would have had to mount a good defense there and then risk being attacked from either side of the keep.
But that's what we discussed before. That would have meant that Stannis has a huge army, right? It's huge. Mm-hmm. But the problem is that most of it is stranded on the other side of the river, right? So if the fleet does turn around, avoids the chain, turns around, goes to the Iron Gate, right? So that's a smaller part of the force. And because
in my mind, there's they have so many ships. There's hundreds of ships. That's thousands of men, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, the ships can't go onto the land. Yeah, they have thousands of men, but then King's Landing is a pretty well protected city. So if there's a smaller force outside, you have a better chance of winning.
Yeah, but Stannis still would have been able to have his the fleet would have still made the army cross, right? It would just have been longer because they would have to go through the bay and instead of the river to cross. But it still would have brought the army on the other shore, I think.
So, Nadia, is your contention then that without the additional wildfire, the outcome would have still been in favor of the Crown, given that their positioning is better and either way the fleet is kind of fucked and not as in play as the armies meeting at the Mudgate and then at the King's Gate?
Yeah, and the thing is that it takes, and if they do go there and they eventually have to ferry their men all the way around to the Iron Gate, what happens is it gives Tywin even more time to get there, right? So in the end, the result is the same.
Because I think the biggest.
If you look at the map,
mm-hmm.
If you look at the map of King's Landing, it's at the beginning of the book. The Iron Gate is really close to the shore. So, I mean,
Yeah, see,
You
that would
land
be kind of
your
my biggest thing
army.
is there's no good place to land at the Iron Gate.
Yeah, and even if you do land, there's Rosby is right there, right? And then basically when there's so little land in between the gate and the sea, basically your men have nowhere to go. They're going to be prime targets for arrows and whatever pitch and stones and whatever they're flinging off the walls, right? So it's
Yeah,
easier to.
the worst thing
Right.
about being on the north side of King's Landing is that you have nowhere to go if things go south. Essentially, you can't you can't retreat back to your keep. You're stuck.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're stuck in the Crown's Land, and the only thing you you essentially caught between the wolf and the lion there, for sure. The only way you can retreat is out to the sea, so you would be pushed out in the sea and drown. Essentially, there's no good way to land there. Essentially, you're right about. Essentially, right.
Yeah.
No, unless you actually like use ballistas or something like that to blow the gate open and quickly enter, you're pretty fucked.
Yeah, I guess the only way that it would be possible, and Davos and Sir Emery would have had to plan for this contention, is that if they get turned back by the boom chain and they have to go out into the bay, their only choice is to go north up to this peninsula. And then there's like a very small inlet of water to the south side of the Iron Gate and the south side of Rosby Road. If they manage to land there without breaking their ships, then they'd have to grapple over the crenellations and battlements on that south side of the Iron Gate. And so instead of going at the gate, they'd have to come to the south of it.
Yeah.
But it would be really risky. But the thing with it is that then both sides would be spread a lot thinner because they have to keep a pretty large garrison guarding the Mudgate and the King's Gate. So you've got them spread out all along the river road on the south end of the city.
Really. But then why would you need such a big garrison there? Because there's no way Stannis, if there's a boom across the river, then there's no way Stannis can cross it, right? So he can't. There's no way he can land men at the Mudgate or the river gate. So you can have like
the boom's on the eastern end of the river, right underneath the Red Keep. But Stannis is
right at the mouth of the river, right? So both the Mudgate and the King's Gate would be sort of like within that barricade, right? And Stannis can't cross from there. Basically, so what they can do is they can have just like a token garrison there, and if he does somehow miraculously manage to get some men across, they can just have more men come from the other side of the city.
Okay, so here's a point then. Who gets the battering ram up to the King's Gate? Because Tyrion's called away from the Mudgate and has to ride up the river, or ride west on the river road to the King's Gate because they're smashing it in with a battering ram. So is that one of Davos' ships, the fleet ships that gets up there, or did they somehow manage to ferry across past the fish market?
Some of the ships actually managed to land on the south, on the
north side shore. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right beneath the. They land at the Tony grounds, basically.
Right. So in this scenario, if the chain was raised before they were able to get in, then they have no way.
Yeah, they'd have to bomb bombard the towers if they wanted to get in. I mean,
they'd have to get past the three whores, all of the other scorpions and trebuchets, and the archers on the walls between the Mudgate and the King's Gate.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because this is a reference to real world defense. This is and also the city itself is also kind of a reference to Constantinople or Budapest. No, not Constantinople. What's it called in today?
Istanbul, not Constantinople. Now, sorry. Anyone?
King London's also similar.
Or did you know that in Viking tongue, it's in Norse, it's called Miklagol. So yeah, the more you know.
No, I did not.
The more you know. But yeah, so Constantinople also had that in the Golden Horn Strait there. They put a giant chain over. It was about like 1,000 yards long. So that's taken specifically out of history. And also King's Landing is also kind of like the second Rome, which is kind of like the second Valyria, right? So in that sense also kind of.
Okay, well, let's think about this. Let's say they have the chain up. They don't have that much wildfire, so they're not really counting on that as a good plan. But Davos already knows that these 2 new towers for the boom chain, they're not very defensible. He makes a point of saying they couldn't hold a garrison. They're not, they probably don't have great structural integrity. So could the Fury use its trebuchet to disable them and lower the chain? Then they get in. And does that win them the battle? Does that make the odds in their favor at that point?
Well, potentially they could. And even Stannis on the other side of the river, he can potentially spend a few days, build some trebuchets, and bring the tower down, right?
He doesn't have the time for building siege weapons.
But the thing is, but then now I'm questioning because Stannis is already. Okay, now I'm questioning it because Stannis has already been there for 10 days, right? He's just been waiting. And he's sort of just left a few men there to make sure that the garrison doesn't come out. I think it's only Davos that realizes there's a chain there.
Yeah.
And maybe Stannis just think everyone else just thinks they're towers, right?
Yeah, so that is a really bad move on Stannis' part. He had the time to attack it and didn't.
Yeah.
And clearly had the numbers. I mean, if he starts attacking it and they want to defend it, they have to come out and defend it. So they have to break their own siege to come out and defend those 2 towers while everyone is sitting there holding their dicks waiting on either Tywin or Davos and the fleet to show up to actually engage here. So yeah, I guess that's a really good point, Nadia. He should have done something about that.
Yeah, unless he was harassed so much by the mountain clans that he was kind of not really able to keep a proper defense there. I don't know.
Yeah, it would have been nice to have a Stannis POV right here.
Yeah. I mean, just a biography, a tell-all about his his faux pas on the Blackwater. Essentially.
Yeah, and then there's the whole thing with Melisandre not being there. Yeah. I don't know if you guys talked about that when I was gone, but
yeah, we did. We kind of came to the conclusion that it might not have done a very big difference. Do you have a different point of view on that?
Well, I think, I don't know. You guys probably covered it. It's all dependent on what she's capable of.
Yeah.
What her strengths are at, what his strengths are at.
Definitely. That's essentially our conclusion. Yeah. But we kind of surmise that it doesn't seem like she has that great powers right now, at least.
Yeah.
I mean, probably close to the wall, maybe something more, but there's no real evidence that she controls anything but fire.
I think maybe the biggest fuck up.
That magic is stronger. Magic is stronger at the wall.
Yeah, it is stronger than it was before, but she has said herself that places of magic, high magic, boosts her magic. So
especially that old magic. I think then maybe the biggest fuck up here with Stannis, I mean, ultimately it seems like to me when reading the whole book and looking at all of it, he's kind of trigger happy to get here.
Yeah. And
they have no advantage as far as the element of surprise or fortification. So he really should have taken his time more to go up to the Vale and try to get the Knights of the Vale to come down past Maidenpool and attack the city from both north and south. I mean, that ultimately seems like the only way for them to completely guarantee their victory.
But would that have worked? I mean, Lysa is pretty firmly situated in the Vale and is not coming out, as far as I gathered from what was the plan from Peter.
I don't know. I think that if Stannis was really thinking about it, there surely would have been a way to circumvent her completely and just appeal straight to the Knights of the Vale.
Okay, so maybe not go to the Knights of the Vale, but instead make an alliance with Robb. I mean,
yeah,
I know what he said about Robb being a traitor, but then just send a message to Robb. I forgive whatever you've done. After this, you can have like sort of your kind of autonomy of ruling over the North. It's kind of like what Dorne has, but just formally bend the knee to me.
Yeah.
And
so ultimately,
it's to get band together to defeat this common enemy that we have.
It's his pride.
Yeah, the pride stops him from giving Robb what he needs to stop the war, and Robb only.
Yeah, basically, because that would have been perfect for them, right? Robb comes in from the north, he comes up from the south, and they sort of sandwich the city between them. So even if Tywin does come, it's still they have a far better chance.
Yeah, I mean, if he waited out and waited for Robb to get back from the Westlands, that would probably work. But right now, Robb is very far away from everything. You should have.
But obviously, you don't make an alliance in a day, right? That was Catelyn's whole mission.
No.
So, if you've already made an alliance with him.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that could have done different. For example, if Ned had gone directly to Dragonstone and met up with Stannis, things might have gone completely differently.
Or, for example, if Stannis went to the Iron Bake now instead of 3 books from now.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, they could also.
I mean, it's like you're ultimately, obviously, that's not without your pride. That's not without your realm of action. He should have done it now and gotten a sellsword company to attack them from the north side of the city, or do what Tyrion did and appeal to the mountain clans. There's more mountain clans. He should have sent envoys up there. He somehow should have been able to draw something off of the Vale, or at least attempted it. They're sitting it out. They're primed and ready. He should have tried to pull the trigger there with them if he really wanted to win this. I mean, the only way to guarantee a victory is to guarantee it. You have to have the numbers, and you have to have a way to make your attack not so one-sided. All he has is the south side of the city. He had to have found a way to get the north. And if he couldn't do it with Robb or was unwilling to, then he should have tried with the Vale, with the mountain clans, or with the Bank of Bravos and a sellsword company.
I just have to note that I think that if he was unwilling to work with a person that actually sought him out and wanted an alliance, which mostly did things on his terms, except for the autonomy of the North, he would probably not be very interested in working with a person that he knows is erratic, like Lysa.
But I mean, his whole contention with Robb is that Robb's crowned, and he can't have that because then it threatens the validity of his own claim. Lysa's not doing anything that's in that same vein.
No, but she's crazy, and he knows that. She's not thinking straight. That's why he was supposed. Young Robert was supposed to, or Robin was supposed to be fostered with him, because she's not thinking straight. So I'm not sure that he counts her as any plausible ally in a sense, and to go around trying to subvert her power just seems like, unless she's actively moving against him, that I'm not sure that's a thing that Stannis would do. It would seem different from what he's done already, at least.
My thing is just, it's so weird that he doesn't even try with her. Everyone else does.
Yeah.
It's like you don't even attempt to make contact there or get a fruitful relationship going. You don't even ask. You're just assuming that the answer is no. And okay, if he doesn't want to deal with mountain clans for some sort of honor bullshit, or because he thinks it's too much of a risk with its proximity to Harrenhal, then again, sellsword company. You've already got a sellsword working for you as far as your seafaring attack goes. Why not try one by land? Because the numbers are in his favor, but his positioning's not.
Why couldn't he have even tried to make an alliance with Dorne?
Right. And they're so
Yeah, like,
close.
go to Doran Martell, send a message to Doran Martell. Oh, hey, look, we're distant cousins. Let's get together and beat this common enemy we have. You want Tywin Lannister dead. I want Tywin Lannister dead. You know.
Yeah, it's like Dorne's not even in the picture right now.
Exactly. Nobody even remembers Dorne is there.
And I don't know if that's...
And Dorne hates Highgarden. It's perfect.
Oh, and they hate the Lannisters. It is perfect. So is that a literary decision that George didn't want to bring them in until later so that he would have something new to bring to the table in later stories? Well, or is it just that Stannis is a dick?
I don't know.
Well, he certainly doesn't have any love for the... Dorne certainly doesn't have any love for the Stormlands either. It's usually not just a war between the Reach and Dorne. It's usually a three-way match between Dorne, the Stormlands, and the Reach. There's been a lot of contention there as well in the Dornish marshes, which is essentially
yes, but in this case, I mean, personally, when you think about it, like Doran Martell hates Tywin Lannister, right?
But he surely also hates Robert and all of his kin, because essentially Robert is the one who started this whole war and murdered off all the Targaryens, which are essentially their cousins, not so much Baratheons.
Well,
I'm inclined to agree with Nadia here that it is their common
was the one
enemy.
who murdered.
Yeah,
I mean,
for a myriad of reasons.
His sister and his nephew and his niece, right?
It's an easy alliance.
That whole thing up. Robert didn't start it.
They should have appealed to Doran to make an alliance and seal it with Shireen and Trystane. They should have tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I think they could have done something. I mean, he doesn't even try to make an alliance with anyone. Like anyone. Yeah. He can't even talk to his own brother without he doesn't try with anyone. Seriously.
Well, he does. He sends Davos at the beginning of the book to the Storm's lords at least, and probably other lords, and he gets nowhere even with his vassals. So, and we don't know, I mean, what he tried to do, but I think also the main thing here for the battle is a matter of time, right? Even in this situation with the Blackwater awfully lost and things like that, it would have ended up crossing, and with time, he had the numbers. Even with the bad situation, the north-south thing, with time, he probably would have had the city anyway, and that's he wants to get there fast, and even he could have tried the Vale or Dawn, but it would have taken time. So in the end, I'm not sure. He knew that it would make time for Tywin to come up with something and save the city. So
it's silly, though. Given more time, Tywin's army either gets there or continues to fight Robb and is split. And if they get there, they don't have any other choice but to go inside and be under siege, which is always the better position, especially in a city like King's Landing.
But then if they were so pressed for time when they were at Storm's End, Davos's advice was that forget Storm's End, we can come back for this. Let's go to King's Landing now before Tywin even has a chance to get close.
Yeah, but that was a matter of pride on Stannis' end, right? He couldn't just leave Storm's End. It might have been a mistake from him, but he just couldn't. And I mean, if we go there, it's the whole tragedy of Catelyn, who doesn't manage to get an alliance and everything. Obviously, if he had allied with Robb, everything would have gone differently. But realistically, he has so much pride, and he thinks he can do it by himself. So yeah, that might be a bad move, but we cannot really expect him to do anything else.
That's what we're trying to say, that his stupid pride is getting...
Well,
I agree.
He is right, though, that he needs Storm's End. He says it in, Davos 2, how is anyone going to recognize me as king if I can't even hold my own seat? So that is a really huge morale thing. Number one, he needs those lords after Renly's death, and number two, he does need that castle.
Yeah.
Technically, his seat is Dragonstone, and he still has that. So.
Well, he doesn't see himself as as the heir to like the crown prince. He sees himself as a king and as a Baratheon. The Baratheons have Storm's End, and the king has King's Landing. So essentially, the two seats the realm owes him is Storm's End and King's Landing.
Yeah, because at this point, if he's the king, Shireen is the princess of Dragonstone.
Yeah, but the thing is, he derives his authority from being Robert's brother, right?
Sorry?
And Robert was the one. Stannis derives his authority from being Robert's brother, right?
Right, he's his true next of kin.
Right? Mm-hmm. And what happened was that when Robert came to the throne, he said, well, I don't have any kids yet. I'm not married. I have a brother, though. And he's going to be my heir, right? So he's going to be the Prince of Dragonstone. So the brother that was next in line was Stannis, so he made him the Prince of Dragonstone, right? Yeah. And obviously, person who's next in line to the king can't inherit whatever ancestral family home they have, right? So Renly gets Storm's End, right? But then Robert eventually does have children, but he never gets around to naming Joffrey Prince of Dragonstone, right?
No.
Yeah, which is weird.
I'm thinking it's not that weird because he doesn't really want to concede to all of the traditions of the Targaryens because he doesn't see himself as a Targaryen. So it's pretty. I'm not sure. I mean, yes, he might have used his logic towards Stannis, but I think both Stannis and himself doesn't really believe in that. Stannis is his true crown prince. I mean, he can make plenty of bastards. He could get some lady, some highborn lady, pregnant and get a trueborn son.
Yeah, I'm talking about the time that Robert became king.
Yeah, but in any sense, it doesn't make sense for him to use the Prince of Dragonstone because he as far as I know, as far as the book says, he never named Stannis the Prince of Dragonstone. He just gave him the seat, and
I think his reasoning was his reasoning was that he needed somebody strong who could keep Dragonstone in control because it was a Targaryen stronghold, right? And the Targaryens had fled across the Narrow Sea, but they could, come back at any time and try to take it back. So basically, he needed someone who could be a strong commander, who could keep control of Dragonstone, right? And Renly was a kid at that time, so he couldn't choose Renly. He chose his own brother.
But the
Targaryens didn't flee across the Narrow Sea. That was their familial outpost for Valyria. That's why they survived. They were assigned there.
No. I'm saying after the Robert's Rebellion.
Oh yes, I see.
The Viserys and Daenerys basically.
I got it.
Taken across the Narrow Sea.
Yeah. So my point is that is totally probably something that's true, but also I think that it must have been thought that Stannis is not the most loved person in the world, and even then he only is known to be a good commander, not so much a good lord in itself. That I think that Robert just thought that, well, my family needs to keep my seat as well. So whom do I choose? Renly, who more obviously is a much more lovable person, or Stannis, who will when obviously the Stormland has been divided between Targaryen supporters and Baratheon supporters. You need a leader that is at least loved, or more than Stannis is. He is definitely not the right person to lead.
But at that time, Renly was just a kid.
Yeah,
nobody knew what he was going to grow up to be.
Well, all of them were kids, but it must have been quite obvious that
no, I think
even
Renly was much younger. I think Stannis was 18 at the time.
Yeah,
and then Renly is like a few years younger than.
Yeah,
Stannis,
even if Renly is 12 or 13. It still makes him old enough for you to see his character and maybe for people already to show that they react better towards Renly than they do to Stannis. I mean, Stannis himself sees this as a slight because he feels that there's no reason for him not to have storms, and because they're not Targaryens. They don't have to follow those rules. Why did he keep him there? Except for the reason to fend off possible attacks. But he could have done that just as well from anywhere else. He spent most of his time in King's Landing, not in Storms, not in Dragonstone. So I'm thinking that Robert didn't only think about his brother being the best commander.
Renly is 13 years younger than Stannis, so he was only 5 at the time.
Okay, so that does make a difference, but still, Stannis is not likable. Wasn't even likable then. So, but Stannis is still pissed about it. Any way you look at it. Is there any other notes about Tyrion?
Yes, I just regarding the first point you made, Hannah, about the decisions of Tyrion. So I basically agree with everything you said. I just wanted to point out that the fact that the 3 big ships are not there is not because Tyrion wanted to keep them safe. It's because they went with Myrcella to Dawn. So it's not part of the plan or the trap or anything. It's just they're not there. They couldn't be in the battle anyway.
Yeah, and you know what, Marie? That's a really good point, because Nadia and I talking about Stannis attempting to make an alliance with Dorne, and Tyrion has already done that. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Also, I'm not sure how Dawn would have helped on the fact that they didn't have the north shore of the Blackwater anyway. So, I mean, the whole point of this was can Stannis have allies on the north and in the north, and he doesn't, and Dawn wouldn't have been of any help with that.
Well, if they were able to split a fleet and sail up north and land, like say in Maidenpool or in Duskendale, and come down from the north, if they had more numbers on their side, was my thinking behind it. He didn't attempt to get more numbers and be able to spread out.
Also, they could have cut Tywin off on the road, the Rose Road.
Yes, that too.
If they'd done that, it could have bought Stannis enough time to lay siege on, or at least break down the walls. Around the gates, at least.
I think the way I would have tried to attack the city is to try to, if they're under siege, you want them to you want to force their hand, that they have to spread their forces internally across as many gates as they can, and have to make them defend themselves from as many locations as they can, because ultimately inside the city they can only have X amount of numbers, and they only have X amount of ways to defend it. So if you utilize the terrain on the outside better, and you force them to split up and spread themselves thinner, then you can be spread. That would have been the way that I would have tried to engage here, and I would have taken my time. I don't understand what his fucking rush is.
Well, yeah, maybe.
I think he just wants to get it before Tywin gets there.
Yeah, I essentially think that's...
I think it would have been better to wait for Tywin to get there. I mean, what is Tywin going to do? Go inside and be under siege? Again, you're at the wrong end of a bottleneck.
So let's go towards the last thing, I guess. I have the speech Tyrion comes with is essentially just, well, I'm not going to say anything. You're going to follow me because you protect the city. And that's okay. I mean, that's a completely acceptable speech to put out there. But, I mean, it's not really rousing, right?
Yeah. The way that comes down in the show is a lot better.
Also, I'm thinking...
But I think here he's just appealing to the emotions. Like, why are these people fighting? It's their sin, right?
I'm just thinking he might just roll a 20 on his...
And you know what? This isn't a battle. It's a sortie. So you don't need a host.
Maybe. Still Still think he rolled a 20.
Hey guys, I'm back. Sorry. On what you were just saying, Patrick, I think the main thing here is that he shames them into following him. I mean, his line about them, what are they if they won't even fight when a dwarf does? I mean, it must really strike home, right? In this kind of universe. They won't like being humiliated. I'm not gonna be able to say it. So shamed like that.
Yeah.
It's absurd. It's the same word in French, but I don't know why. It's just slurry right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like he shamed them into going. So like, all right, we're going, but they're not really shaming someone. Isn't gonna get the best reaction or the best work out of somebody. So he probably wanted to, end it with more of a morale boosting something.
But Tyrion's theory is that if I go and fight and they don't, then it's humiliating for them. So they'll go out and they'll fight well, so they do better than me, and it does work.
Yeah, maybe. I'm not sure that he would convince the situation, but not if I was thoroughly shocked or shaken by my full action and reactions to what's happening outside. It would take more, I think, to get me won over.
Where is your Viking spirit, Patrick?
Well, I mean,
you're not going into battle.
I would have gone into battle for sure, but not from this. I mean, every single Viking a proper, speech to go into battle. So you're gonna let me outperform you? Oh, and but by the way, I'm not gonna say fight for anyone. Fight for yourselves, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How about I not fight not fight at all and say, hey guys, hey Stannis, it's fine. That seems like that might be the less dangerous way to do stuff.
Yeah, you're kind of doomed either way. I mean, you can go out and fight, or you can stay in and die.
Yeah.
Like, what does it matter?
Except that kind of speed the process up by going out. So maybe you do that. But I would, in this situation, by thinking about people, why don't they just take their chances, not do it? Inspired by it in this setting. But that's not really. Yeah, well, that's how it react to. Maybe we're hitting the 2-hour mark, 2.5-hour mark. So
3 hours, 2 hours and 45 minutes.
Yeah, okay. Well, we started a bit later. But if you want to be completely precise, yes, maybe 2 hours and 45 minutes. Yeah. So, any closing thoughts about all this? Anything you're looking forward to in the next 3 chapters?
The romantic moment between the Hound and Sansa.
Oh.
The kiss that never was.
Okay, so I'm not quite sure. I feel like it's so romantic, guys. Like it's sort of like
it's not romantic.
It's sort of like almost rape, but not rape.
Yeah, but we're reading into it a lot. So
hot. The way
we're playing the long game, Patrick.
Sure, nah. I mean, you guys, a lot of people, they talk about what's rape and what's not. This is not an almost because she doesn't want this. She's like 12 years old. She doesn't want it. So no, him coming up and trying to do whatever and get her to follow him.
We'll discuss that when we get.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm
sure we'll all have a lot to say about it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not sure that I can attend that discussion, but well, there's different on his way of trying to convince her, at least. So yeah. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us this time. You'll probably have the much abbreviated version of what we've been talking about today. Some of it will definitely go into an after show, but most of it is great. And I want to thank my co-hosts here today, Nadia and Marie and Hannah and Jock. Thank you all for joining me and keeping up with my my special kind of humor.
Well, thank you. Thank all of you, actually, because it was a really nice time I had, and first podcast, so I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, you did great.
Thanks.
Very fun.
Yeah. So let's just well, say our goodbyes. Goodbye.
Yeah, bye guys.
Oh,
Good night.